For decades, spinach has been elevated to the top of the superfood list. It's become synonymous with vigor, health, and youth, almost as if it were a protective shield against all diseases. Many of us grew up believing that the more spinach we ate, the better it would be for our bodies. But is this reputation truly true? Could mindless spinach consumption be a silent mistake that threatens your health, especially after you turn 60? The answer may surprise you completely. Imagine someone who religiously follows a diet full of green salads every day, believing they're protecting their body against the problems of aging. This person feels proud of their healthy habits, but without even realizing it, they may be accumulating substances that overload their kidneys, weaken their bones, and even interfere with the effects of their medications. Scary, isn't it? What should be an act of self-care can turn into a hidden trap on their plate. And that's precisely the danger of spinach. It's not in the food itself, but in how we use it daily. Modern science reveals that, although loaded with valuable nutrients, spinach also carries compounds that can hinder the absorption of essential minerals, such as calcium and iron. Furthermore, there are specific risks for those already living with certain common conditions after the age of 60, such as osteoporosis, high blood pressure, or a history of kidney stones. The irony is that, in the rush to achieve vitality, many end up putting their own health at real risk. This is where the question few ask arises: could such a famous vegetable be silently sabotaging our quality of life? And furthermore, why is almost no one speaking out about this? Perhaps because the image of spinach as a nutritional hero has been repeated so many times that it's become untouchable. But science isn't afraid to revisit established myths. The good news is that information is absolute power. When we understand the most common mistakes when consuming spinach, we can adjust simple daily choices to transform a potential enemy into a genuine ally. Small changes in preparation and frequency make all the difference. And that's exactly what you're about to discover: the 8 biggest spinach mistakes every senior needs to know, and how to avoid them to maintain energy, strong bones, and active longevity. If this alert touched a chord with you and brought a new perspective on such a popular food, hit the like button now. This way, more people will be able to access this vital information before it's too late to prevent serious problems. Have you ever heard the phrase, "eat spinach because it's full of iron"? This advice has been passed down through generations. The image of Popeye the Sailor opening a can of spinach to gain instant muscle helped solidify this idea in the popular imagination. But the truth is, this myth was born from a scientific error, and to this day, many people continue to believe it without knowing the real story behind it. In the late 19th century, researchers analyzed the amount of iron in spinach and published their results. But one detail changed everything. Carelessly, the decimal point was placed in the wrong place. The value found appeared to be 10 times higher than it actually was. The scientific world, and later the general public, embraced the discovery as if it were absolute truth. The result? Spinach became a symbol of strength and energy. But the iron in it is not as readily available to the body as it seems. Even after being corrected, this error has never lost its cultural traction. The key issue is that the iron in spinach is bound to compounds called oxalates, which drastically hinder absorption. In other words, the body doesn't utilize most of the iron in this vegetable. For those already suffering from anemia or low hemoglobin levels, relying solely on spinach can be a dangerous trap. It's like putting the wrong fuel in a car. You think you're getting enough fuel, but in reality, the engine isn't getting the power it needs. This doesn't mean spinach is useless, but it shows how a lack of context can completely distort the truth. Nutrition isn't just about the raw amount of nutrients, but about the body's ability to absorb and utilize each of them properly. And in the case of spinach's iron, utilization is much lower than previously thought. There are much more efficient sources, such as legumes, lean meats, or seeds rich in bioavailable iron. Now, if the iron myth has already opened your eyes to the importance of questioning old beliefs, get ready. Because the next mistake doesn't involve the amount of nutrients, but the presence of something that can literally crystallize inside your body and cause intense pain, surgery, and serious risks to your kidneys. If the iron myth has already shown how spinach's reputation can be misleading, now we come to the truly critical point: oxalates. Few people have heard of them.
But these microscopic crystals are present in large quantities in spinach and can silently accumulate in the body. The problem? They have a strong affinity for minerals like calcium, forming solid deposits that turn into kidney stones or disrupt essential functions. Imagine an elderly person who drinks little water and consumes raw spinach and green juices every day, believing they are improving their health. What happens inside the body is the opposite of what is expected. Oxalates bind to calcium, forming hard crystals, and gradually begin to produce microlithiasis, small granules that develop into kidney stones. Anyone who has experienced the pain of a kidney stone knows it is one of the most intense pains a human being can endure, and in many cases, it leads to hospitalization and surgery. But the risk doesn't stop with the kidneys. Excess oxalates can also affect the joints, causing discomfort, stiffness, and even worsening arthritis in older people. Furthermore, they reduce the absorption of minerals essential for vitality after 60, such as magnesium and calcium. The result? More fragile bones, less resilient muscles, and a body that, instead of gaining strength from spinach, can end up losing vitality. Scientifically, it's known that a diet high in oxalates, when combined with low fluid intake and genetic predisposition, greatly increases the chance of developing kidney stones. And that's precisely where the danger lies. Symptoms often appear when the problem is already too serious to ignore. It's not uncommon for someone to discover during a routine exam that they have silent kidney stones growing for years. Of course, we don't need to demonize spinach, but we also can't ignore science. The secret lies in knowing the food in depth and using it wisely, without falling into the trap of the more, the better. Dietary diversity, proper preparation, and balance are the keys to transforming spinach from a threat into an ally. And this raises an essential question. If oxalates are already capable of impairing mineral absorption so much, what is the real impact of this on our bones, which are already naturally more fragile with aging? As we age, one of the biggest challenges is preserving the strength and density of our bones. Osteopenia and osteoporosis become real threats, especially for those over 60. It's in this scenario that careless spinach consumption can become a silent obstacle. This is because the oxalates present in this vegetable bind to calcium in an almost invisible way, drastically reducing the amount the body can absorb. The result? Bones that should be nourished become increasingly fragile. Consider a woman who always believed she was taking care of her health by preparing huge salads with raw spinach, thinking she was strengthening her bones. In reality, instead of absorbing enough calcium, her body was discarding much of this essential mineral. And without enough calcium available, the bone structure gradually gives way. It's like a wall built with fragile clay bricks. On the outside it appears solid, but on the inside it's vulnerable to any impact. Calcium isn't just important for bone strength. It's involved in muscle contraction, blood clotting, and even nerve impulse transmission. When bioavailable calcium is lacking, the body is forced to extract it from its own bones to maintain vital functions. This emergency withdrawal accelerates bone weakening and increases the risk of fractures, which in older people can be devastating, compromising mobility and autonomy. And the worst part is that many older adults believe they're doing everything right. They drink milk, eat spinach, and try to maintain a healthy diet, unaware that this excess oxalate acts as a barrier, blocking calcium utilization. It's a trap that goes unnoticed until a bone density scan reveals the loss of mass or, in even more severe cases, until the first fracture occurs. The good news is that science also shows ways to counteract some of these effects. Proper preparation of spinach, balanced consumption, and smart combination with other foods rich in highly absorbable calcium can make a difference. But before we talk about solutions, we need to address another equally critical point. It's not just calcium that suffers from excessive spinach consumption. There's also a hidden factor that can make this vegetable a serious risk for those taking certain medications. When we think about dietary risks, we rarely think about drug interactions. But for those over 60, this is a reality that cannot be ignored. Spinach, being extremely rich in vitamin K, can significantly interfere with the action of common medications, especially blood thinners. And this often overlooked detail can have serious consequences. Medications like warfarin, used to prevent thrombosis, stroke, and heart problems, depend on a delicate balance between blood clotting and fluidity. An excess of vitamin K alters this balance,
reducing the medication's effectiveness. It's like someone constantly adjusting the handbrake on a car while you're trying to drive. At some point, the system stops responding as it should. The risk of clot formation increases, and what should protect the heart can become a silent trap. But it's not just blood thinners that require attention. Spinach can also affect the absorption and effectiveness of calcium, magnesium, and iron supplements, precisely because its oxalates bind to these minerals. For those who already have nutritional deficiencies or take supplements prescribed by a doctor, including large amounts of raw spinach can negate some of the expected effect. In other words, you take the medication or supplement believing you're taking care of your health, but your body isn't able to fully utilize it. Imagine a common scenario: an elderly person with a history of hypertension, osteoporosis, and cardiovascular risk. This patient takes 3 or 4 different medications daily, in addition to supplements prescribed by their doctor. If the basis of their diet is raw spinach and juices and salads, they could be compromising the effectiveness of the entire therapy without even realizing it. The consequences can range from a gradual worsening of symptoms to acute crises requiring hospitalization. Therefore, it's essential to understand that spinach doesn't mix well with all health contexts. More than just being good for you, a food can be beneficial or harmful depending on the state of the body and the medications used. This is one of the reasons personalized nutrition is so important after 60. What helps one person may harm another. And even when not taking medication, the way spinach is prepared can completely change its impact on the body. Raw or cooked? Which is best? The answer may be more surprising than you imagine. The way spinach is prepared can completely transform its effect on the body. This often overlooked detail explains why some people consume the vegetable daily without noticing any problems, while others experience kidney pain, brittle bones, or mineral deficiencies. The key is the difference between eating it raw and cooked. Raw spinach, so common in salads or green juices, maintains its maximum oxalate load. This means that each bite carries the potential to block calcium and magnesium absorption and contribute to the formation of crystals that overload the kidneys. The fresh flavor and convenience mask this less discussed but very relevant side, especially for those over 60 who already face natural challenges with nutrient absorption. On the other hand, when spinach is cooked or sautéed, some of the oxalates dissolve in the water. This process reduces the amount of substances that hinder mineral absorption, making the vegetable less aggressive. However, high temperatures can also reduce some sensitive nutrients, such as vitamin C and some folate. In contrast, certain antioxidants, such as lutein and beta-carotene, become more bioavailable after cooking. In other words, there is no perfect method, there are advantages and disadvantages to each method. Science shows that one of the best strategies is to vary the preparation. Alternating between small portions of raw and cooked food, always cooking in plenty of water and discarding the liquid, can balance risks and benefits. Another tip is to combine spinach with ingredients that neutralize some of the oxalates, such as lemon, rich in vitamin C, and olive oil, which aids in the absorption of antioxidants. These simple combinations enhance spinach's strengths and reduce its undesirable effects. For many seniors, this change in preparation is key to continuing to enjoy the vegetable without compromising their health. The problem arises when spinach, whether raw or cooked, is consumed excessively and repeatedly, without adding variety to the dish. After all, even a healthy food can become harmful when it takes up too much space in the diet. And this is precisely the next mistake we need to explore: the trap of putting spinach on the table every day, as if it were irreplaceable. There's a widespread belief that if a food is healthy, the more the better. In the case of spinach, this leads many people to include it on their plates every day, believing it's protecting their bodies from disease. However, this seemingly harmless habit can turn into a dangerous routine, especially after age 60. The human body wasn't designed to live on dietary monotony. When we repeat the same food daily, we increase our exposure to its negative compounds and fail to provide the body with the variety of nutrients it needs. In the case of spinach, this means overloading the kidneys with oxalates, reducing calcium and magnesium absorption, and also increasing the risk of drug interactions. It's like insisting on using the same tool for every problem. At some point, it becomes insufficient and even harmful. Another point is that daily repetition creates a accumulation effect. What seems harmless in a single meal becomes worrying when repeated for weeks or months. The body begins to constantly deal with the excess oxalate and vitamin K load, without time for balance. This is when silent complications arise: kidney stones, accelerated bone loss, or fluctuations in blood clotting in those taking anticoagulants. Dietary diversity is one of the biggest secrets to healthy longevity. Studies show that older adults with varied diets have less inflammation, better gut microbiota, and greater resilience against chronic diseases. Including kale, arugula, Swiss chard, broccoli, and other leafy greens in your weekly rotation not only prevents the risks of excessive spinach consumption but also increases the supply of protective nutrients. It's worth remembering, you don't have to eliminate spinach, but you do need to understand that it shouldn't have an exclusive place on your plate. Balance comes from smart rotation, which allows the body to enjoy the best of each food without falling into the trap of excess. And here's an important reflection. Have you ever stopped to notice if you add spinach to your plate almost every day? Have you noticed any discomfort or changes in your body that could be linked to this habit? Share your experience in the comments, because real stories help others see risks they may not have noticed yet. But the question remains, does everyone need to be so concerned? Or are there specific groups for whom spinach could be even more dangerous? While everyone should be aware of the risks of excessive spinach consumption, some groups of people need to be extra careful. Elderly people with a history of kidney stones are at the top of this list. The oxalates in spinach can bind to calcium and form crystals that grow silently, causing severe pain, urinary tract infections, and, in severe cases, surgery. Another vulnerable group is those with osteoporosis or low bone density. Because oxalates block calcium absorption, excessive spinach consumption can worsen bone fragility, increasing the risk of fractures. It's a silent effect that goes unnoticed until an accident occurs. People taking blood thinners also need to be careful. The vitamin K in spinach directly interferes with the effectiveness of these medications, potentially reducing protection against thrombosis or stroke. Even those taking essential mineral supplements should monitor their intake, as oxalates can reduce the absorption of calcium, magnesium, and iron. It's worth remembering that not everyone reacts the same way. Genetic predisposition, daily hydration, and dietary diversity make a difference. For some, small portions of spinach several times a week are perfectly safe. For others, even a daily salad requires caution. The key is to know your body and adapt your diet to individual needs. Even so, spinach doesn't need to be completely eliminated from your diet. What makes a difference is the frequency, preparation, and combination with other foods. For example, cooking the vegetable or alternating it with other leafy greens helps reduce the impact of oxalates. Small changes can transform spinach from a potential enemy into a health ally. And for those who want to enjoy its benefits without the risks, there are even safer and more nutritious alternatives. Leafy greens like kale, Swiss chard, arugula, and broccoli deliver similar nutrients without overloading the body. Despite all the warnings, spinach remains a rich and functional food, as long as it's consumed in moderation. It's a source of fiber, which aids digestion and maintains a feeling of fullness, antioxidants like lutein and zeaxanthin, which protect vision, and important vitamins like A, C, and some B vitamins, essential for energy and immunity. It also contains magnesium and iron, although not fully absorbed, contributing partially to muscle and blood health. The key is not to focus entirely on a single vegetable. When spinach is part of a varied diet, it adds value without creating risks. It's important to remember that nutrient bioavailability varies with preparation. Cooking reduces oxalates but maintains important antioxidants. Eating it raw provides more vitamin C but increases the risk of oxalate accumulation. Knowing how to balance these choices is essential to maximize benefits. And we can't forget that health is the result of consistent habits, not a single miracle food. A colorful plate, with different types of leaves, vegetables, fruits, and lean proteins, ensures a complete supply of essential nutrients and reduces the negative effects of each individual food. This diversity strategy is proven to be associated with better digestion, more energy, less inflammation, and greater longevity in people over 60. If you already consume spinach responsibly and regularly, congratulations. But for many seniors, spinach still takes up too much space on their plates. Without considering alternatives that deliver similar benefits with less risk. If you want to continue enjoying the benefits of leafy greens without the risks of excessive spinach, there are equally nutritious and, in some cases, even safer alternatives. Leafy greens like kale, arugula, Swiss chard, and broccoli offer fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, but with lower oxalate concentrations, which reduces the risk of kidney stones and interference with calcium and iron absorption. In addition to varying the types of greens, The preparation method and combinations can enhance nutrients and minimize unwanted effects. For example, seasoning with olive oil improves carotenoid absorption, adding lemon or vinegar can increase iron bioavailability, and alternating raw and cooked greens balances benefits without overloading the body. Small changes like these transform simple meals into true allies for longevity. Another important point is frequency. Instead of eating spinach every day, alternate it with other greens throughout the week. This rotation ensures nutrient diversity, helps prevent overload of compounds like oxalates, and keeps the diet interesting and enjoyable. A colorful and varied diet is one of the most effective strategies for health after 60. And there's a little-known trick that makes spinach safe. Cooking it quickly in plenty of water and discarding the liquid significantly reduces the concentration of oxalates while preserving essential vitamins. This technique allows the food to be consumed without compromising bones, kidneys, or mineral absorption. If you know someone who adds spinach to their plate every day, it's worth sharing this information now. Small changes in habits can prevent serious problems and ensure this vegetable remains a health ally, not a silent threat. We've reached the most important point: spinach isn't an enemy, but it's not an absolute hero either. It all depends on how it's consumed, how often, and how it's combined with other foods. For those over 60, paying attention to detail makes all the difference in maintaining health, protecting bones, kidneys, and heart, and preserving daily energy. The key lesson is simple yet powerful: balance and diversity are more important than any single superfood. Introducing variety into your plate, alternating leaves, cooking smartly, and paying attention to your own health conditions transforms every meal into a boost to longevity. With small adjustments, you can continue to enjoy spinach safely and still reap all its benefits, such as antioxidants, fiber, and essential vitamins. More than just learning about a specific food, this knowledge serves as a guide for conscious choices throughout your diet. Every decision you make at your plate directly influences your vitality, mood, and prevention of chronic diseases. The good news is that these choices are completely within everyone's reach. All it takes is information, attention, and practice. If this content was helpful and you want to continue discovering practical ways to live better, subscribe to the channel now. This way, you'll have continuous access to valuable tips on nutrition, prevention, and healthy aging. Remember, taking care of your body after 60 is a matter of intelligence and strategy, and every step counts toward living with energy, health, and independence.